Hey guys, I wanted to talk today about fear of fear, which is a topic which I think we can't talk enough about. It's a topic that we will always talk about when it comes to OCD. It's a core fear for, I think, every single OCD sufferer because it's that element which takes the longest to work on, and it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of patience, a lot of moments of feeling frustrated and hopeless with it as well, and feeling like you're not making any breakthroughs. What is fear? Fear mainly, the fear of fear is fear of being stuck forever, fear of relapsing, and fear of feeling something negative, emotional, physical, mental for the rest of your life, right? So it's that fear of being stuck in something bad for the rest of your life, never recovering from OCD, all of that, right? So I don't think there's any OCD sufferer who does not face this in some capacity. I think probably one of the most common fear elements is the fear of chronic guilt and shame. That if I do something, then I will feel guilty for the rest of my life. I will regret it for the rest of my life. I will never be able to be happy. I won't be able to think about anything else. I will always feel like a bad person. I will never feel like a good person. Life will be over. Basically, that kind of internal spiral that we go on. The biggest mistake with fear that I really want to highlight over here is that when people are working on the rational side of things and trying to accept their worst case scenario, I think people are misguided in aiming for a complete eradication of anything negative in their life, right? So that means that, okay, if I work on unconditional acceptance, then I will feel no guilt about this real event false memory thing. Or if I work on recovery and I recover from OCD, that means that I will have no negative emotions, no sadness, no nothing, and I'll be free and I'll live my life happily ever after. If I work on recovery, then I will never have any intrusive thoughts ever again. If I work on this, then I will never feel negatively about this thing, right? So it's that perfectionistic aim that people have with working on fear of fear and working on OCD recovery itself, which is that the complete elimination of any negative feeling, thought, and sensation. But that's not how it works, right? And I think the perfect example I always give people is that I had real event OCD for a very long time. And I think that over the years, there were a handful of, like, I don't know, 7 or 8 real events that had collected in my life that I was just like absolutely like, beating myself up for, and just like complete self deprecation, thinking that, oh God, this is such a big stain on my record. I will never forget this. The people who were involved in those events will never forget this about me. They will always see me through that lens. They will always define me from how I reacted in those specific situations. And obviously, I was just feeling completely terrible about it. And I've had countless nights just like rolling around in bed, just thinking about like, oh, like this feels so horrible. Like I can't erase this from my life. And I think it was especially when it comes to real event false memory OCD, I think there's also that notion of something being permanently crystallized in your past and that can never change, and that also creates that fear kind mental environment of this is going to be there forever and it's not never going to change, and that makes you feel trapped and stuck. And then you think that, oh, because it happened and it's permanently written in the past, therefore I can never recover from this, or I can never move on from this. That kind of element comes into play with that. So fear is something on that note too. You have to remember that it can be mimicked in so many different ways. You'll see so many different shades and inflections of it with different situations and fears. Like I think even with me, I think I can think of being in an airplane, right, or being in closed spaces. Whenever it came to closed spaces and feeling a little bit claustrophobic, it was associated for me with fear of having a panic attack and fear of also throwing up as a result of having a panic attack. So it was all of that combined, right? And of course, a bit of the fear of embarrassment of having a panic attack and throwing up in front of other people. So everything combined together. So but being in that closed space also kind of like mirrored that feeling, that mental feeling of being trapped and being in this closed space and never being able to get out of it, or not having an escape route. Because if you're on a plane and if you're like flying, where will you escape? You can't open the door and jump from a parachute either. Like you just have to stay in it till the plane lands and you have no other option. And then when you have no other option, it makes you feel helpless. And any kind of situation that mimics that fear of not having an option or an escape makes it feel like I'm going to be stuck forever. So that's where fear kind of like, it can show up in so many different ways in your life, right? So going back to the example of like the real event false memory thing. So for me, because it had that element that I've done these things in the past and I'll never be able to move forward from this, um, I just thought I'm going to be stuck and I'm going to have these like really bad memories and feelings about the past, and it's never going to go away. As I worked on unconditional, not only self acceptance, right, accepting myself for making some of those mistakes and having some of those regrets in my life, but also unconditional other acceptance that, okay, that other people will perhaps maybe view me like that, and maybe that's an opinion I cannot change, and that opinion and perception about me might be there, as misinterpreted and misunderstood and misguided as it may be, they still will think of me that way. So that acceptance angle was really important. But then also the unconditional life acceptance angle of all of this too, which is accepting that my life has turned out this way, right? Because you do have to change your complete outlook on life itself when you're working on this. That element that my life must not be this way, my life is not supposed to be this way, my life has to be XYZ way. And that's this like imaginary, self-made, self-curated concept of what our life is supposed to look like. That's something that takes people quite a lot of time to really change, because I think all many people, especially now, I guess, because we also live in a world of like, hey, dreams can be possible, you can do anything you want to be, and there's some maybe truth to that as well because of the amount of access and opportunities. But at the same time, I think it gives a certain sense of like, I think our people's life outlook can look like, I was guaranteed XYZ thing in my life. Why didn't I get it? Even though there was nothing that was guaranteed to you, like, or like you're not entitled to any of those things. Sure, you can have a preference to have a good life, and I think it would be great if everyone has a great life. But like, there's nothing that was set in stone that you were owed from the very beginning, right? So working on the life acceptance angle from that end, that okay, this is how life has turned out, and this is how I guess like my life will be, in the sense of perhaps there will be some shame, regret, guilt that I will carry in my life. Maybe my life, when I think about life as a concept and now how it has turned out, maybe I will not feel extremely positive about all aspects of it or all the years that I have lived, right? So accepting those angles too, right? Um, in working on that, I'm coming back to fear because that's where I'm linking this to. In working on all of those aspects with real event OCD, right? There were, and I'm just saying this as a hypothetical. So let's say there were like, I don't know, seven or eight like real events that I was like obsessing over. I would say probably, I don't know, 5 out of 8, I actually, as a result of working on acceptance, I don't feel guilty or regretful about them, because not from an angle of like, oh, I don't care and like whatever, I may have hurt someone's feelings, not in that sense, but like I think just from an angle of I think I have like a lot of self-compassion over there, and I also really truly understand the context of the situation and why things occurred that way, and therefore having that understanding has helped me like not have any like lingering kind of like ill feelings about it, either towards other people or even for myself as well, to be honest. But then there are like a couple of situations where I still have guilt and regret and shame and embarrassment or whatever negative emotion you want to associate with it, or even like sadness or sense of loss, to be honest. There are a couple of situations where I do feel like that. But the only difference now is that I don't feel that chronically, right? Why? Because I have been able to accept that fear scenario, which is that I may have some guilt, regret, shame in my life, and that's something that whenever I think about those events, I may feel that negative emotional response, right? I may have that for the rest of my life, but I don't need to aim for the complete eradication of any negative emotion or feeling that comes up with that. I don't need to have like a completely clean record. The absolute demand and need that I have to have like a clean record and I cannot feel XYZ thing is the main kind of like problem with fear that people have, and what they're trying to work on. Because when people are also working on disputing, doing exposures, whatever it is that they're trying to work on, I think one of the things that people say on one-to-one calls, yes, I've been doing this, yes, I've been looking at these fears and all of this, but like, but I still feel guilty about it, but I still feel like I feel anxiety. It's not completely gone. So I always say that if it's completely gone, if any kind of like guilt or negative emotion, anxiety you feel like completely goes away over time, that's a big bonus. That is a big bonus, but it's not a given. The main goal with working on acceptance and fear, even the fear of having OCD forever, the main goal for that is to reduce like the chronicness of it, not the complete eradication of it, right? Because if you're going to aim for the complete eradication, it's going to fuel that internal checking your feelings, monitoring your feelings, scanning. Am I anxious? Am I not? Am I sad? Am I angry? Am I still depressed about it? Am I still guilty about this? Do I still feel that? That monitoring is going to go on and on and on, because you're going to be desperately waiting for not even a single thread of it to be present, right? So, but if you aim for something like, okay, I mean, it may be there, but I just don't want to feel chronic about it. Not only you're going to have a better chance of approaching your recovery in a calmer way, but also in a less compulsive way, and therefore not in this like desperate way of like, and not in an idealistic way as well, of this picture perfect thing of like, oh, if I work on acceptance and I overcome XYZ thing, then life will be la di da, and like nothing's going to stop me, hippity hop. It's not going to be Mary Poppins, essentially. It's going to be a far better version of life, but also not completely perfect. And that's okay as well. So just thought I would talk about this very briefly. I have a one-to-one to go on, and I will see you guys later. Take care. Bye.